At 9 minutes to 9 a.m., we continue with the broadcast this morning on News and Views, and it's time now to take a look at 16 days of activism against women and child abuse. And this morning, we speak to the director at the Saartjie Baartman Centre. We speak with advocate Bernadine Bachar. Bernadine, good morning to you, and welcome to the show.
Good morning to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we have been covering 16 days of activism since last week on a daily basis. And I'm actually quite glad that we are talking to you this morning because I know there is a wealth of information that you can bring in terms of unpacking the scourge. Now, looking at statistics of gender-based violence in South Africa, upfront, I need to ask you, Bernadine, what are your thoughts?
You know, we have been working very hard, particularly since the president came up with a national strategic plan to really work to make sure that the needs of survivors on the ground are met, number one, and number two, that we are preventing gender-based violence. But I can tell you that over the past 4 years, I haven't seen any difference in the numbers of women that are approaching us for assistance. So quite clearly, we're not doing enough as a sector, and the government is not doing enough to make sure that GBV rates are either lessened or we start eradicating gender-based violence in its totality.
Yes, the fact that we're not reducing the numbers is a matter of huge concern. And just to understand, so for the benefit of our listeners, just the nature of violence against women, and just looking at some of the broad categories that you are familiar with and you have been exposed to as well, Bernadine.
Yes, so we're seeing women coming in through the centre all the time that are being subjected to all manner of forms of abuse. Our numbers are still exactly the way they were pre all of the work that we've been doing in terms of awareness as the sector for gender-based violence. But women are still constantly approaching us and saying that things are not any different out on the streets for them. So all forms of violence are being perpetrated against women, particularly insidious forms like emotional abuse, mental abuse, and psychological abuse. And we really aren't getting to grips as a country with the rates of GBV that are enormous out there. And we all know, everybody's aware of what's happening out there. We all need to now start standing together and say, I'm an activist against gender-based violence. I'm going to do all that I can to put it out when I see it, and I'm going to support those that are actually doing the work with survivors on the ground.
Now, Bernadine, just talking about support, and that support is absolutely crucial. It's important. And just looking at generally steps that can be taken, what steps can people take to help those who are survivors of GBV?
Yeah, I always say that the one way that you can certainly help a survivor is if somebody comes to you and says, I'm being subjected to abuse, is to actively listen. You know, an abuser will, first of all, isolate a survivor. They will demoralize them. They will dehumanize them. But by the time that a survivor comes to ask somebody for help, they reach the end of all support systems. So active listening is crucial. And then also be aware of what the resources are there that are out there. So where is your nearest shelter? What do they do? How do you support them to get a protection order? How do you support them to get into a shelter? How do you support them to go to the police and lay a charge? All of these, the information is crucial so that the survivor that goes to somebody asking for assistance actually gets empowered by somebody that is supporting her through it. And then when it comes to supporting generally, as I said earlier, stand up against GBV. I'm asking men and boys to be allies with women against GBV and support your local shelters. You know, the Saartjie Baartman Centre for Women and Children, after government stipends, needs 6 million rand a year to keep going. At this moment in time, we're trying to raise 650,000 by the end of 16 days because that's what my financial manager tells me I need to bring in so that the centre is actually sustainable. So we're asking people to please support us. But yes, support your survivor as well on the ground with active listening, with real support where she can go to get the help that she needs.
Yes. Now, also with the 16 days of activism in mind, do you believe that this is enough time to raise awareness and at the same time, absolutely important, crucial accountability?
Absolutely not. And you've reached, you've mentioned the most crucial word. One of the themes for 16 days this year is moving from awareness to accountability. Now, we're all aware that we have 5 times the global rate of gender-based violence in this country. We're aware that 1 in every 4 women in this country has been subjected to some form of physical abuse. We need to now start taking accountability. We need to say that we have to be responsible and we have to all stand up against gender-based violence. But we need to do that 365 days a year. 16 days isn't enough. We all need to take responsibility and say, I'm going to do my part to make sure that this doesn't happen in my country anymore.
Well, Bernadine, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning here on Salam Media, on News and Views. We wish you all the best. We wish the Centre West as well, all the best as well, the Saartjie Baartman Centre. And we trust and hope that you will raise the funds that you are looking for to keep the centre going, but more importantly, the work, the absolutely important work that you and your team are doing. We wish you all the best in all of those endeavors.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Bernadine Bachar joining us this morning. And again, the focus 16 days, but this is not a campaign for 16 days only. In fact, when one looks at the campaign, it actually forms the center point of the government's comprehensive 365 days of activism for no violence against women and children. But also at the same time, this is a campaign that needs to be taken at grassroots level. And also in our schools, I think this is absolutely important, where the schools also addresses issue with regard to violence against women. And we know a lot takes place at schools as well. And not so long ago, we even covered the whole issue about the increase of teenage pregnancies in school. So it does appear as if we are still a very, very long way away from eradicating the scourge of gender-based violence. And let us not forget the children that suffer in the process as well. The time is headed for 9 a.m. There is still going to be a lot more to talk about when we come back. We've got an interesting discussion coming up with the senior staff writer at the London-based Middle East Monitor, Naseem Ahmed. And this is a United Kingdom landmark report that still finds there is widespread anti-Muslim bias in press coverage in the United Kingdom. And with that, we headed straight for 9 a.m. We're going to head for the news. Tabile Duma at the Al Ansar newsroom is standing by.
Listen to